All right, so welcome back. Last time we had the max heart rate seminar, and I made the case in that seminar that doing a lot of maximal training and maximal testing can often be a distraction from the things that matter. So today's topic is really about fast Ironman racing and specifically the marathon and helping you decide what matters. Because my experience at Roth is a very common profile that you will see in your performances and in the performances of your athletes if you're a coach. Now, this happens all across the distance spectrum, what I'm going to show you. But it's really easy to see in Ironman because the Ironman is such a long day and the run performance is, you're out there for a while. So it's not, if you're going to underperform, you're not going to underperform a little. You're probably going to underperform a lot. So let's dig in a bit. And by the way, I wrote a long form article, basically a chapter called Fast Ironman Racing that runs through a lot of what I'm going to explain, but in more detail if you want to see the figures. So one of the challenges we have with run fitness is we never really get to see what we look like when we're fresh and rested during race week. So 3 days before Roth, we were staying at a hotel that was just a short jog away from a track. So I was like, okay, well, let's just go out, warm up a bit, and do a 5K test. And there it is. So it's zone 2 benchmarking. And let's shrink me down. And we just click analyze. And it pops up. Okay, so run easy to the track. 5K around the track, run easy home. This file is on Strava for anybody that wants to dig in. That says July 3rd, 2025 if you want to find it. Now, one of the things I found on the day, because I was on a track and I knew my splits were accurate, I had track splits, was my watch was splitting a little early. So it was sort of flattering my pace versus heart rate. Now, when I do these segments when I'm fresh, this one was done on effort. So my heart rate is rising slowly across the 5K, and then towards the end of the 5K, I get to a steady state. So I'm interested in what the maximum heart rate was across the 5K because I've found that maximum heart rate will be useful for me when I get into a race situation, a longer race. And you'll notice in my protocols for submax and maximal testing, I'm always looking at the max heart rate per step. I find my heart rate response lags, and it lags a lot when I'm in a cool environment. This wasn't. This was warm and humid. But if I'm in a cool environment and I'm really well trained, my heart rate response comes up pretty slowly. So the maximal is something for you to bear in mind. Now, what we had, the result there was 4:05 Ks, so 4 minutes, 5 seconds per K for 5K with a max heart rate of 143 beats per minute. Now, last time in the Heart Rate Max seminar, I shared 2 workouts with you, and one had a max of 168, the other had a max of 174. So just for our purposes here, let's just average them and say about 170. And I think that's going to be accurate enough for our purposes that we're using. So that's kind of the benchmark. And I was thinking to myself, you know what? If I can hold 410 to 415 K pace, that's going to drop my heart rate ideally into the 130s. And I should be able to have I'd be able to process my calories and have a solid run and then just kind of see how it goes. So that was the plan going in. All right, let's get rid of this one. Now the task for Ironman. You need to define your task based on the core pace, a reasonable core pace for your marathon. So my view of my reasonable core pace was 410 to 415. And that was based on race performance, training performance, and benchmarks like this. I figured there was headroom there and headroom on my thresholds, and I had a good shot at pulling that off. The other thing you need to be aware of, and the most important thing to train for, is the amount of work that is going to be required before you get to the Ironman. Nice thing about race day is we don't have to guess. We get an actual bike split, and that was 3,700 kilojoules of mechanical work. And then I had the swim before, and I don't have a power meter on my body for the swim, but we can just round that up to say 4,500 kilojoules of work, and possibly maybe a bit more, because non-wetsuit swim, so I was probably having to work a little bit harder, certainly having to work a little bit harder, and I was out there longer than if it was a wetsuit swim. But it's to give you context. So there's your pace that you're thinking is reasonable, but that pace has to be held after this huge amount of work that you're going to need to tolerate, and have that amount of work be routine for your body to be able to come close to running to your potential based on your run fitness. So bear that in mind. Now, what happens next is easier to see on my Strava account. And this is, if we just go to splits, laps, there we go. And this will bring up, I set my watch to lap on K-splits, because I like to see them, and then afterwards it makes data analysis like this really easy. Now, I made a common mistake, started fast. It did not feel fast. Now, that's one of the things you'll find in every race distance when you come off the bike. That speed of the bike, it's like coming off the highway, and no matter what you're driving when you come off the highway, it's going to feel slow to you. No matter what you're running when you come off the bike, it's going to feel slow to you. So something I need to work on is dialing that down. So then run down, get to the canal, settle in on the canal. I'm running 410-ish pace, so 410 to 412K pace, and the heart rate's in the kind of mid 140s. And it felt comfortable. It did not feel, my breathing was relaxed. There was no panting. Cadence was relaxed. Everything felt smooth, and things were going fine. So again, max heart rate from that benchmark, about 143. I'm holding 410-ish Ks at 145. Compare that to my second threshold of about 160 and my max of 170. So there's plenty of headroom. And if we compare my velocity at second threshold to the pace I was running, there's also headroom there. So keep that in mind. What you're going to find is you're not going to be headroom limited. What are you going to be limited by? You're going to be limited by what comes next. And what came next for me was, go back to overview. And what we can see, this blue line is pace. And the pace line going down is not what we want to see. We want to see an even paced run. Or if we're going to fade a bit, there's hills at the end of the Roth course. So there's going to be you're going to give away some pace versus what you're running on the canal. But you don't want to see it coming down all that. The other thing that we're going to see, heart rate coming down. We definitely don't want to see that. Now, I speculate on the reasons for the heart rate coming down, but the information is simply in the fact that both pace and heart rate are coming down. So if for this athlete, in this case me, there's something going on and I'm not able to hold this early pace that I selected. So it's going to be a durability issue, a fueling issue, and likely a depletion issue. In other words, that swim bike combo that felt appropriate was inappropriate. And it doesn't matter how that combo felt, the signal is in the marathon result. So when you're preparing your training and you're preparing to race, you need to be keeping all of this in mind. And run durability is going to take years and seasons to build up. And it needs to be something that you're focusing on all the time. The durability part, not the headroom part, not the pace part. Consistent running and just that chronic mileage, staying healthy, keeping those adaptations, avoiding intermittency, being really cautious, hitting your minimum effective dose if you think you got a niggle coming on, not making things worse, and releasing yourself from pace expectations for most of the year and just focus on getting the running in and building those compound gains. That's going to be where you get your biggest bang for your buck, because that aspect of your fitness is going to be what's required to keep that heart rate up and to run strong all the way through the marathon. You will be tempted to do hard sessions, but when you actually dig into the data of your races, you're going to see you're not coming anywhere near those hard paces, powers, and velocities on Ironman race day, specifically on the marathon. Now, there are a couple of exceptions to this. If you are a very well-trained athlete, eventually your heart rate at the end of the marathon is going to be up. So I talk about having like a marathon cushion, and you'll see this with open marathon times. That heart rate is going to be rising as the pace is being held across the marathon, both open marathon and very fast Ironman running. And you're going to need to leave a little capacity in that early pacing. Now, I thought in the 140s I had that capacity. This showed me I didn't have that capacity. I would have been better off starting in the 130s, that 135 that was kind of at the back of my mind, starting there and then leaving myself room to come into the 140s and hold the pace as things got difficult. So every race is an opportunity to learn, and I hope you can learn from my experience. Hope this helps you run better and faster and achieve your goals. Thanks for listening.